Okay, so one is scientific method. I thought the book did a good job sort of highlighting that for you. If you took notes, you should have for sure had that in your notes because they went bold on that and they threw it in the margin. Generally speaking, if it's bolded and in the margin, it's a probable question. It's not a guarantee because I didn't ask you science, and science was also bolded and in the margin, but I didn't ask you that. But that most quizzes, bolded and in the margin means it's going to make it, just as a study tip for people that are new at this. Two, I thought they did a fair job of this question. They said scientific method involves 3 steps, and then one of them they bolded and put in the margin, which was experimentation. And then the other one they bolded and put in the margin, which was hypothesis. And then I don't quite understand why they didn't bold and put in the margin step 3, because that had all the feelings of a 3-point question to me. But the third one is further experimentation. If you didn't pick up on further experimentation, I wouldn't blame you as much as if you missed hypothesis and experimentation. I'd sort of blame the book because they didn't really as much highlight that, but it definitely invited a 3-point question there. 5, I thought they also did a funny job on this. The whole point of the scientific method is it keeps working out and it keeps working out and it keeps working out, and it becomes in 5 a thing called a scientific law, which they did put in italics, but why they didn't think that merited a bold and an inclusion in the margin, I'm not really sure. But scientific law, if you didn't pick up on that question as well, I don't blame you because I didn't think the book did as well with that particular one, but that is a highlight of that. When the thing keeps working out, that is a scientific law. And that was sort of all the stuff from 1-1. Question about the stuff from 1-1? Okay, 1-2. I sure hope you didn't miss number 6, but maybe I shouldn't have said that because now you feel bad if you missed number 6. But number 6 is chemistry. So if you didn't see chemistry coming, that's an ouchie question, I guess. But they did a good job with that. That's bold, that's in the margin, that's there. And then I kind of went open-ended. So they mentioned a bunch of kinds of chemistry, and they put this table in the book to show you the kinds of chemistry. So any 2 of the 5 would work. They're in a table, they're in bold, they're on the side, they're in the margin, they're everywhere. So organic works, inorganic works, analytical works, physical works, biochemistry works. You have your choice of any of those. Question about scoring anything there? Let's give those back to owners. I'll get your scores once we're not recording because we don't need to record your scores for all of history to view your scores. If you have your book on you, pull it out and go ahead and join me on page 6. And I'll preview the next quiz for you. The quiz goes kind of big because I'll just tell you how in a second. But if you want to join me on page 6, we'll start to talk. Job for tomorrow is read 1-3 and read 1-4. 1-3 takes you on a history of chemistry, which they do a big box on page 7 that it re-describes some different people they talked to from the history of chemistry. Tomorrow, the 1-3 question is going to be semi-open-ended and just say, tell me some stuff about the history of chemistry. So you don't have to memorize that whole group. I'm not going to ask you any specific questions about it. You just need to retain some facts about what was going on with the history of chemistry. Question about that portion. Okay. Then we're going to also read 1-4. 1-4, if you flip into page 8, which continues on to page 9, is going to basically describe how your book is set up and some different features that your book has in it, like study hints and summaries and whatnot. Just read that. I will have 0 specific questions about that either. but I will say, tell me some features that are in your book in an open-ended way, and if you read that, you'd be able to name me a couple other things that they name. Then keep flipping and you'll arrive on page 12. Every chapter they have an element gets highlighted. So they start with gold. So read the box. I will never have any specific questions about the element. It will always be a little bit of open-ended, tell me some stuff about gold. It has to be stuff you read about gold. You can't tell me like it's in California, there was a gold rush, people's wedding rings are made of it. That stuff doesn't count unless that box talks about gold rushes and wedding rings and whatever. It has to be items from the box. Grand total of new questions is 10. I'm not telling you how much from each section, but I am committing to open-ended, tell me about the history of chemistry, open-ended, features of the book, open-ended, box about gold, grand total of that. There's 10 questions from the reading, whatever, but no specific questions guided by me. It's all just whatever you choose to bring to the table on those 10 points to start that quiz. Question about what you're reading and what's new from reading. So that's a little bit of an easier reading, probably.
1.3 to
1.3 and 1.4 and this box, if you keep going to the blue box. People that had geometry probably remember every chapter had a person. Chemistry, every chapter has an element. So every chapter will get one. We're done with, after tomorrow, we're done with chapter 1. There is not a chapter 1 test. That's not enough material to take a test. What we'll do when we get to next week, when we start into chapter 2, the quiz resets back to baby quiz again. But when we go to take the test, all of this material will come back only for the test. But we're not going to every day be saying, like, what is chemistry, what is chemistry? That's going to go out to come back in later.
Did you say the original quiz?
No, I'm about to do that.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah. No, I got as far as the 10 new ones from the reading and then I died out. Question about that? Okay, so not making a quiz, but just an observation. Chemicals are everywhere, so I find it humorous sometimes. There are chemicals that are harmful to you, but there are people in the world that to me come across a little nutty because they're like, oh, there's chemicals in this. And I kind of know what they mean, but like oxygen is a chemical. You need that to breathe and live, okay? H2O, water, is a chemical. Carbon, your body is made of it. You need that. Like, chemicals innately are not good or bad. There are some chemicals that can affect you positively and some can affect you negatively, but there's some people that seem to live in this realm where they think, oh, chemicals are bad. No, there are chemicals that keep your food from being poisonous to you. That's good. There's also chemicals that are poison to you. That's maybe not good if you ate it, but there's still maybe a reason for that because they're killing bugs that are like causing malaria. Like, that's good if it's used on a bug to not give you malaria, but it's bad if it's in your drinking water and you drank it. Like, so the chemicals are everywhere. Everything is made of chemicals. There is no such thing as this is chemical free. Like, that makes no sense. Scientific method. If you're looking at this thinking, this isn't the scientific method I learned before, that's probably true, okay? There's a basic theme behind the scientific method, but every book explains it in a little bit different way. I think the physics book had experiment, analysis, conclusion, testing, I think. That's true. What they're saying in this book is true. What other books are saying is true. What Mr. Kellner said is true. But I'm just going to honor what this book says for our course now because this is our book that we have. So, question tomorrow, early on in the quiz, what is chemistry is going to move to the head of the class. So that'll be the first question. What is chemistry? So the key words you want to hit is composition and changes. Surround it with some other words, of course, But I'm unwaveringly, for the definition for chemistry, going to want to see composition and changes as the most important words there. And then you could substitute some other words, but you do need other words as fillers. So let's go with science, concerned with composition of substances and the changes they undergo. But if you have blah, 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 composition, blah, 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 changes, blah, 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 you're probably okay with composition changes and some surrounding words. So that's how number 6 is going to change. Scientific method is going to be a 6-point question. So I'm going to say name and describe the scientific method. So what you're going to say is first say experiment. And then I'd like a little bit of a follow-up on that. So my follow-up on experiment is collecting facts and data by observing. So experimentation, I'm going to say collect facts and data by observing. By facts, I mean things like maybe ice melts. That's a fact. By data, I mean things involving numbers. 33 degrees, still ice. 32 degrees, or excuse me, 33 degrees, still water. 32 degrees, looks like it's freezing. 31 degrees, definitely frozen. If you have data, that's numbers. Facts is just like, hey, this water's going to freeze. So run back again. Experimentation, collect facts and data by observing. There's 2 points out of 7. Then move down to hypothesis. I'm going to say a tentative theory. You have an idea, you're not really sure. That's what a hypothesis is, a tentative theory. You don't have to have those perfect words. If you forgot the perfect words, tentative theory, and you went with, I have a pretty good guess, but I'm not sure, I'm trying to figure it out, that's a long way to say the same thing. Okay, but that captured the idea. I can wiggle with you on stuff like that. More experimentation is a standalone point. I'm not going to have you explain experimentation again. And then I'm going to have you just say scientific law last. You don't have to explain scientific law, just say it last, because it's kind of the culmination of the whole thing. Everything worked and matches and matches and repeats and repeats and happens, and we're sold on it. Scientific law is the 6th point. So 2 points off of experiment, 2 points off of hypothesis, 1 more further experiment, 1 more scientific law. That turns 1 to 4 into 6 points, not whatever it was, 1 to 4. Question about that? 4-point question with 2 bonus points. Didn't make the quiz at all. It was in the reading. We'll see if you remember. Can anybody name me 4 kinds of science? Name me any of them. There's 4 kinds of science. Social is in there. So social is 1. So if you want to jot into your notes thing somewhere, name 4 kinds of science. Social. True. No. Physical, yes.
Life.
Sort of life. Different, fancier name for life and stuff.
Biological.
Biological, yes. An A word.
Yeah, I think she said
AB.
it. Oh, no. Abstract.
Abstract. So name 4 kinds of science. Abstract, biological, physical, social. 4 points. Here come 2 bonus. Which club does chemistry belong to?
Biological.
No.
Is that physical?
Yes. So 9th and 10th grade here, you took physical science because physical science includes both chemistry and physics. It's like a baby version of both. Both of those fit into physical science, chemistry and physics, both. But yeah, chemistry, if you just put a note in the physical zone, chemistry belongs to this of the 4 families. There's 1 bonus point for you. Then they told you one of these sciences, Sesame Street style, one of these sciences is not like the others. One of these sciences is not the same. Who's the misfit of the 4?
Abstract.
Social. How is social unlike the others?
For all the others, you can create your things with chemicals, while social you need different people.
Sort of true. Social, you can't do controlled experiments. Social sciences is like studying people. And people don't take kindly to you experimenting on them. in the world. So social science is unlike the others because you don't really conduct controlled experiments on humans. Something about that zone? 7 and 8 pops big. So what we're going to go on this one is name, define, explain. And the homework is going to have you do this a decent bit. They're going to give you some different categories and ask you what category of chemistry would this belong to. So can anybody, let's just start naming them first. You already have 2 on your paper. What do you, name something, yell.
Organic.
Organic is out there.
Inorganic.
Inorganic is out there. Analytical is out there. Biochemistry is out there. Physical is out there. So there's our 5. Organic, inorganic, analytical, physical, biochemical. Question about the 5, run back. What makes it organic?
Has carbon.
Carbon. Anything to do with carbon is organic. If you go to college and your advisor suggests you take organic chemistry, ask, do I have to? If the answer is yes, just maybe follow up, are you sure? If the answer is still yes, just take it. If the answer is no, do not take that class. I never took it, but I can tell you, just my freshman, sophomore year, there were people that looked like zombies talking about their organic chemistry classes that they were in, and it did not sound like a good time. Do not recommend it. Just FYI. Inorganic chemistry is therefore an easy point.
No carbon.
No carbon. Analytical, I can give you 2 sciencey words or 2 normal phrases. So I'll give you your options here on analytical. Analytical, if you want the fancy words, we could say study of qualitative and quantitative things. If you don't like remembering study of qualitative and quantitative things, we're going with what's in a sample and how much is there. Qualitative is a study of what's in a sample. Quantitative is a study of how much is there. Physical. I've got 3 words. If you want to just hit me with 3 words, you can give me these 3 words. If you'd rather have phrases with simpler words, I'll give you those too. So my 3 big words would be structures, kinetics, and thermodynamics. If you want to say structures, kinetics, and thermodynamics, be my guest. If instead of kinetics you'd rather say how fast things change, feel free. If instead of thermodynamics you'd rather say the role of heat, be my guest. But I'll run that back. Structures for sure. How fast something changes, which is kinetics. Or the role of heat, which is thermodynamics. That's our stuff. Biochemistry is living systems. Question about explanation. And then I'll hit you up with an example. So I just stole the examples out of the book. You could steal examples out of homework. You could steal examples out of life. Just if you steal an example out of life, make sure it's something that's like obvious. But their example of organic was aspirin. But there are other things you could use. Literally anything with carbon in it is legal for an example of organic. But the book said aspirin, so I just stole theirs because it's there, so that's easier. Inorganic, they mentioned a car battery. So I just stole that one. Car batteries don't have carbon in them. Analytical, their example was measuring pesticide in water. So you're trying to figure out how much pesticide got in your water supply. That's analytical chemistry. There's other things like that. Physical, they mentioned ice melting, because that has to do with heat. So that fits into that thermodynamics thing. Living systems, biochemistry, they went with saliva. Like how saliva works. That's a living kind of part of your body processes. But like I said, you don't have to use those examples. There's other things that are certainly true. I stole the ones that the book had that are there. Anybody want to run back on any of that? Then let's look at homework. The homework in this book is a little bit weirdly located. It's always all in a wad at the end of the chapter. You're used to every other book you had, it's like read homework, read homework, read homework, read homework. This book is like, it's just a bunch of homework located at the end. So look with me to page 9. The homework we're doing off of this lesson on page 9 is going to be 1 to 5, but if you look at the page, you recognize 1 to 5 understates what they're asking you to do.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, so what 1 is asking you to do is just write the definitions that we just shared. I assign that because I think that's helpful to just iron those into your brain. By doing that, that's more helping you study for the quiz than that is homework in effect. But what's going on 1 is just write the definitions that we just said. You could either use the books or the shorter ones that I gave you if I gave you a shorter one, I don't care. 2, when it says distinguish, what's distinguish mean?
Find differences. Like
Find something that's different. You only need one difference. You don't need to turn this into an essay question. But what's going on is you say, how is this versus that different? Just say one way it's different. This is this, that's that. Be done. We're out. So that's 1 and 2. 3 is a little bit of a scientific method game. They want you to identify, like, which thing in this was their experiment, which thing in their paragraph was the hypothesis, which thing was whatever. So that sort of just stands alone. 4 and 5 is a little bit longer version of the game I just played, where I named you aspirin, pesticide, car batteries, ice melting, saliva. Here's more of that. So some of them are really obvious and some of them are sort of tricky. If in any way the formula has carbon in it, that's going to be organic. What's the chemical symbol for carbon?
C.
C. So if you see C's, that's definitely carbon. If you see a chemical formula and it does not have C's in it,
Inorganic.
inorganic. If you have something where they're measuring what's it made of or how much is in there, that's going to be analytical. If there's something about heat, physical, something about how fast something's doing something,
Physical.
also physical. If they're talking about structurally how it's like
Physical.
done, that's still physical. And anything biochemical would stand out because it's something to do with life. You know, nerves and saliva and muscles and brains and organs, whatever. If it's alive, it's a living thing that has something to do with bio. But like I said in 4 and 5, some of them are really obvious and some of them are kind of like sneaky. But 1 to 5 is homework, name of the game. 3 to 4 was the read, 10 open-ended points. Quiz kind of popped bigger. And that's a wrap on us. Shut that down.